Shabbat Shalom. Boker Tov. Good morning. Buenos días. Baruch haba. Bienvenidos. Welcome. This morning we're in Shemot, Exodus chapter 20. And verse number 8. I will give you the Hebrew first. And this will go to verse 11. זכור את יום השבת לקדשו, ששת ימים תעבוד ועשית כל מלאכתך. ביום השביעי שבת לאדוני אלוהיך, לא תעשה כל מלאכה אתה, ובנך, וביתך, עבדך, ובהמתך, וגרך אשר בשעריך. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, את הים ואת הכל אשר בם, וינח ביום השביעי, על כן ברך אדוני את יום השבת ויקד שהוא. And so he says, verse 8, he says, remember the Shabbat, remember the Sabbath, to sanctify it, to have it, keep it holy. 6 days you may work and perform all your labor. But the seventh day is a Shabbat, is a Sabbath to Adonai, your God. You shall perform no labor, neither you, your son, your daughter, your manservant, your maidservant, your beast, nor the stranger who is in your cities. For in 6 days Adonai made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them. He rested on the seventh day. Therefore Adonai blessed Shabbat, and he sanctified it. So to start out, to begin this morning, we must explain that this is the most controversial of the commandments. Why is it controversial? Why would this commandment be controversial? Because the church teaches that the Sabbath has been changed, that it has moved. And so Christianity, not all of Christianity, but most of Christianity, believe that the Sabbath is no longer the seventh day, but that the Sabbath is the first day, is Sunday. And so this has created controversy. The second reason why there is controversy is because we have a term called legalism. I believe just about every person who is in Messianicism, who is a Messianic, has been called a legalist
que ha sido llamado un legalista
by their Christian friends,
por nuestras amistades cristianos,
their Christian family.
familia.
I have been called a legalist
Yo he sido llamado un legalista
because I keep Shabbat,
porque guardo el Shabbat,
because I believe in keeping the Torah.
porque creo en guardar la Torah.
And so we are called legalists.
Somos llamados legalistas.
So I want to throw out for us
Entonces quiero tirar esto,
a question to consider.
una pregunta para considerar.
What is the opposite of legalist? What is the opposite of legalism?
¿Quién es el contrario? El legalismo.
Huh? Illegal, very good. Not non-legal,
Legal.
but illegal. What does illegal mean?
¿Qué significa ilegal?
You see,
O sin ley.
Christianity wants to soften the blow
La cristiandad quiere fortalecer el golpe
of where it stands,
de donde,
where it is in reference to Torah.
donde están ellos establecidos en la Torah.
What do we mean that to soften the blow?
¿Y qué nos referimos, así decir, para establecer el golpe?
How many of us like to admit that we are wrong?
¿Cuántos de nosotros les gusta admitir cuando estamos en lo malo?
Do you like it? Do you like to admit that you're wrong?
Les gusta admitir que estamos en lo malo.
Most of us know.
La mayoría de la gente, nosotros no.
Most of us want to defend ourselves.
Todos nos queremos defender.
I do not like to think I am wrong.
Yo no me gusta pensar que yo estoy en lo malo.
I like to think that I'm right.
Quiero pensar que yo estoy en lo bien.
And so it is.
Y así es.
So when we're facing Torah,
Pero cuando estamos enfrentando a la Torah,
it is very clear,
está tan claro,
very explicit
explícito
in its commandments to us,
en sus mandamientos hacia nosotros,
in instructions to us.
en las instrucciones a nosotros.
So let's take a look at the clarity of it.
Para ver la claridad sobre
Verse 8,
versículo 8.
he says, Sakor et Yom Hashavat lekadsho. Remember
Guárdate
the Sabbath
el Shabbat
to keep it holy.
y guárdalo, santifícalo.
He says, Sheshet Yamim Ta'avot. 6 days you may do your work.
3 días puedes trabajar.
Vi asita and perform kol melachkatecha, all of your labor.
Exigir todos los labores.
But he says then, V'yom, and the day, Hashvi'i, 7th. Hashvi'i, Ha-Shvi'i. Everyone say, Shavi'i. Shavi'i, 7th. Shvi'i, 7th. So, Ha-Shvi'i, the 7th. Yom Hashvi'i, the 7th day, is Shabbat.
Día séptimo es Shabbat.
In Hebrew,
En hebreo,
the word Shabbat
la palabra Shabbat
comes from the word for 7,
viene de la palabra
the 7.
séptimo.
And so it is forever linked. Shabbat is linked to the number 7.
So, es para siempre. El Shabbat está en conjunto con el número 7.
So that I cannot say, in Hebrew, I cannot say that the Shabbat is on the first day of the week.
Uno puede decir en hebreo que el Shabbat está en el primer día.
Because the very meaning of Shabbat, the significance of Shabbat,
Porque el sentido, el significado del Shabbat
is the seventh day.
es el séptimo día.
So in the Hebrew mind,
Con la mente hebrea,
in Hebrew thought,
el pensamiento hebreo,
if I say that Sunday is the Sabbath,
si digo que el domingo es el Shabbat,
if I say that that the first day of the week is Shabbat,
si digo que el primer día de la semana es Shabbat,
in Hebrew I would be saying
en hebreo estuviera diciendo
Yom Rishon
Yom Rishon
et Shabbat.
es Shabbat.
Yom Rishon, the first day,
Yom Rishon es el primero,
is actually the seventh day.
es el actual el séptimo día.
Does this work?
Trabajan.
Does this make sense to you? Is the first day the seventh day?
El primer día es el séptimo día,
Or is the first day and the seventh day is the seventh
o
day?
será el primer día, el séptimo, el séptimo.
You see what I'm saying? The Hebrew mind. In Hebrew, it doesn't work that I can say that the first day is a Sabbath.
En hebreo no trabaja que digas que el primer día de la semana es el séptimo día, no concuerda en el hebreo.
The very language demands that the Sabbath is the seventh day.
La lengua hebrea demanda que el día séptimo es el Shabbat,
Saying that they are forever linked together.
diciendo que siempre están encadenados.
They can never be taken apart.
Nunca puede ser dos.
Shabbat is the seventh day.
Shabbat es el séptimo día,
The seventh day is the Shabbat.
el séptimo día es el Shabbat,
Vayom Chashvi'i Shabbat. The seventh day is the Shabbat.
el séptimo día es el Shabbat.
Who said this?
¿Quién dijo esto?
Huh? The Torah. Who gave Torah? Who said this? Who's making the command here? Hashem. God. God is making this commandment here.
Dios da este mandamiento.
So God says, V'yom Chashvi Shabbat. Le Adonai Elohecha. V'yom and day. Vayom and day. Y el día. Hashvi, séptimo, es Shabbat, is the Sabbath. Le, to Adonai Elohecha, Adonai su Dios. The seventh day is dedicated to God. Yeah?
El séptimo día está dedicado a Dios.
This cannot change.
Esto no puede cambiar.
It is engraved in stone.
Está inscribido en tierra.
It cannot change.
No puede cambiar.
And God has not changed his mind concerning this.
Y Dios no ha cambiado su mente sobre esto.
The seventh day is the seventh day,
El séptimo día es el séptimo día.
and it has not changed.
No ha cambiado.
So interesting.
Pero interesantemente,
We will not get deep into it today. We will not study this very deeply today.
no vamos a estudiar esto tan profundamente hoy.
Next week we will give explanation
La semana que viene damos una explicación
as to exactly how the change came about,
de cómo vino el cambio,
with references,
con referencias,
with the proofs
con pruebas
of how this happened.
de cómo pasó esto.
I will say only this today.
Digo esto nomás hoy.
That for my evangelical friends,
Gente evangélica,
that they are more Catholic than they would ever desire to be.
son más católicos que pensarían ser.
That they are literally following the teachings of the Catholic Church.
Que están literalmente siguiendo las enseñanzas de la Iglesia Católica.
In keeping Shabbat, in moving the Sabbath to Sunday,
En moviendo el día de reposo de Shabbat a domingo,
in Christmas,
la Navidad
in Easter.
y la Pascua para los cristianos, por decir.
These are all Catholic doctrines.
Estas son todas doctrinas de la Iglesia Católica.
They do not come from Torah.
No vienen de la Torah,
They do not come from Tanakh.
no vienen del Tanakh,
They do not come from Brit Hadashah.
no vienen de la Biblia,
They're not found there.
no están encuentros ahí, no se encuentran ahí.
I will say this,
Les diré esto,
nowhere in Scripture
en ningún lugar en la Escritura
is there a change.
hay un cambio.
God does not change it.
Dios no lo cambia,
Not one time in Scripture
ninguna vez.
are we told, are we commanded
Nos dicho o nos mandó
to worship another day.
a adorar en otro día,
Nowhere.
en ningún lugar.
This is a very important commandment, no?
Este es un mandamiento importante, que no.
This is the final commandment in our relationship with God.
Este es el mandamiento final de nuestra relación con nuestro Dios,
What are the two great commandments?
que son los dos mandamientos mayores,
The summation of all the Torah.
lo que son de toda la Torah.
Found in what? Yeshua says it. Pardon. Go ahead.
Lo dice Yeshua.
Love your God and each other.
So, say loud.
Love your God, first of all, and then love each other.
Correct.
Like,
To love the Lord your God with all of your heart,
Tú amarás a tu Dios con todo tu corazón,
all of your soul,
toda tu alma,
all of your strength.
toda tu fuerza.
And the second,
El segundo,
to love your neighbor
que amarás a tu prójimo como tú mismo.
as yourself. These, the 10 commandments,
Los 10 mandamientos
are divided into those two sections.
están divididos en estas dos secciones.
That the first 4 commandments
Los 4 mandamientos
tell us how to love God with all of our heart,
nos dice cómo amar a nuestro Dios con todo nuestro corazón,
all of our soul, all of our strength.
alma, nuestra fuerza.
The final commandments
Los últimos mandamientos
tell us how to love my neighbor as myself.
nos dice cómo amar a nuestro prójimo como a nosotros.
And all of Torah is divided between these two sections.
Toda la Torah está dividido en estas dos secciones.
Every command of Torah
Todo mandamiento de Torah
falls into one of these two categories.
cae en una de estas dos categorías.
So the keeping of Shabbat
So, guardando el Shabbat
is the last of loving God with all of your heart.
es el último para mostrar nuestro amor así a nuestro Dios.
If God said it's okay to make idols,
Y Dios dice que está bien hacer imágenes, ídolos,
that He would make such a great change. That He would make a great change.
que hará un gran cambio,
To say you can make an idol,
que puede ser puedes fundir un ídolo
and it's okay for you to worship it and to bow down to it.
y está bien adorarlo y postrarte sobre el ídolo.
Do you think that God would tell us this was okay? I'm saying if he were going to change, I'm not saying He did. Listen very carefully to the question. If He were to change it, such an important commandment, would he not tell you he's changing it?
Es decir, que si
If God were to make an important change
Dios, hay que suponer, si Dios quiere hacer un cambio importante
in his
en
commandments,
sus mandamientos,
would he not tell us
no lo diría
that he's making this change?
que está haciendo ese cambio.
You as a parent,
Tú como un padre,
if you're changing one of the rules of your house,
estás cambiando una regla de su casa,
would you not tell your children?
no le dirías a sus hijos,
You're changing the rule
estás cambiando
so that they would be informed,
para que estén informados,
so that they would be good children.
para que sean niños buenos.
Do you not want your children to know
No quieres que sus niños sepan
for certain what are the rules of your house?
que son las reglas de su casa.
The same is true here.
Lo mismo aquí.
God does not change his rules.
Dios no cambia sus reglas.
And if he were going to change the rules,
Y si iba a cambiar sus reglas,
certainly he would tell us he's changing the rules.
ciertamente nos diría que nos está cambiando sus reglas.
Where in the Brit Chadashah
No me implica la Shara, no
does it say that God changed the rules?
dice que Dios cambió sus reglas.
Does Yeshua say that God changed the rule?
Yeshua dijo que Dios cambió sus reglas.
Does Yeshua say that God changed the day?
Porque Yeshua que Dios cambió el día.
Or is it not true that the gospel actually literally tells us that Yeshua worshipped on Shabbat?
No es cierto que las escrituras dicen que Yeshua adoraba en el Shabbat, lo adoraba.
That Yeshua went to the synagogue as was his custom on Shabbat.
Y que Yeshua fue a la sinagoga como era su costumbre a adorar en el Shabbat.
Does Paul?
Y para Pablo,
Peter?
Pedro,
John?
Juan,
Which of the writers says that the Sabbath day has moved?
¿quién de los autores del Nuevo Testamento dijo que hubo un cambio?
None of them.
Ninguno,
There's not a word of change concerning Shabbat.
ningún cambio.
Would you address then the proof texts that are used in the church saying that Yeshua is our Shabbat and they met on the Lord's Day and such?
Yes, we will talk about that. He asked for that Christianity uses such texts that they met on this day, that they met on that day.
Está preguntando sobre los textos que usan los cristianos en que se refieren que el Señor es nuestro Shabbat. No sé si sería la referencia que podría enseñar sobre eso.
And so they say, you see, this is why. But it does not say that he changed any day. So they're using it. Okay, so my answer this morning, as I said, we'll get into this deeper next week. My answer this morning is this: they met together every day. Number one.
Ellos se congregaban todos los días, primeramente.
The book of Acts tells us that the early believers met every day.
Libro de Hechos dice que se congregaban sus creyentes todos los días.
Second of all, the second verse that is used that I don't have it in front of me, but it says that Paul was teaching them early in the morning of the first day. Okay, Paul was teaching them early in the morning.
El segundo dice que Pablo estaba enseñando temprano en el primer día de la semana.
And so they say, you see, they were meeting on the first day.
Y aquí se refieren a cristianos que ya están adorando en el domingo, el primer día de la semana.
Problem.
Problema.
When does the Jewish day end?
¿Cuándo se acaba el día judío?
El ocaso del sol.
In the night.
Huh?
Al ocaso del sol.
Yeah, for the night.
Right? When the sun sets.
Cuando se cae el sol, se acaba el día judío.
That is the end of the day. So today is Shabbat, today is the Sabbath.
Ahora es Shabbat hoy.
When did the Sabbath begin?
¿Cuándo comenzó el Shabbat? Ayer.
Last night at sunset. The Sabbath began.
Comenzó el Shabbat.
So when will the Sabbath end?
Cuando terminará el Shabbat.
Tonight at sunset.
Hoy, a la caída del sol.
When the sun is down
Cuando está bajo el sol.
and you're able to define, you're able to see clearly, to distinguish two stars,
Y pueden mirar definitivamente dos estrellas.
the Shabbat is over.
El Shabbat terminó.
And in Judaism, we have a service at the end of Shabbat.
Y en el judaísmo tenemos un servicio sobre Shabbat.
And what is this service?
Y es este servicio
It's called Havdalah.
que se llama Kabbalah.
We have the page for Havdalah here. All of this in the ark this concerns Havdalah. All of this is for Havdalah, for the closing service of Shabbat.
Todo esto es para el encerramiento del Shabbat de Kabbalah.
For Havdalah, we say brachot, we say blessings,
Hacemos bendiciones,
we sing songs,
hacemos salmos,
and then we close Shabbat by lighting the Havdalah candle.
y cerramos el Shabbat para encender
So
la vela.
these people can see it too.
At sunset.
We do this at sunset, Shabbat is over. As soon as I light the candle, Shabbat is over.
Encender la vela significa que el Shabbat ya terminado.
Why is Shabbat over?
Porque el Shabbat
I cannot light a fire on Shabbat.
no puede encender en el Shabbat.
So as soon as I light the fire, Shabbat is over.
El fuego ya terminó el Shabbat.
So how do I start Shabbat?
Como comienza el Shabbat,
Lighting candles.
encendiendo velas.
And how do I end Shabbat?
Y como terminó el Shabbat,
Lighting candles.
encendiendo velas.
Then we light the candle. We have a jar of spices, like incense spices,
Sí, gracias.
and we pass the jar of spices. We smell the spices.
Pasamos las
I don't know if you can pass it or not, if they can smell it or not. I forget for my viewing audience here. These are Jewish spices from Israel. These come from Israel.
Una especie de...
I don't know if you can smell them because they're like old now. I don't know if they have an odor to them. And so the reason why we smell the spices
La razón que olemos las especias
is to remember the sweetness, the sweet fragrance of Shabbat.
para recordarnos el dulce sabor del Shabbat.
And the final thing that we do
La cosa finalmente que hacemos
is we fill the Kiddush cup
es llenar la kidushka
and we have a cup of wine.
y le tomamos una copa de vino.
And then we take the fire, we take the candle,
Y lo tomamos
we pour some of the wine in a dish,
ponemos el vino en un platillo
and we put out the fire.
y encendemos el fuego.
And that is the official end of Shabbat.
Y así es el término, terminación.
So as soon as I do this, as soon as I do these things,
Y hacer otras cosas.
Shabbat is over.
Shabbat ha terminado.
The seventh day is over.
El séptimo día ha terminado.
And the first day of the week has begun.
Y el primer día de la semana ha comenzado.
So, when does that happen?
¿Cuándo sucede eso?
Well, let me check my calendar here,
Voy a checar el calendario.
and it will tell me.
Y dirá,
Sunset tonight is at 5:54.
a las 5 se termina el Shabbat.
So the Shabbat will end 10 minutes after that.
Shabbat terminará 10 minutos después.
So Shabbat will be over at approximately 6:05 p.m. this evening.
Aproximadamente a las 6:05 es la terminación del Shabbat.
Saying that the first day of the week
Diciendo que el primer día
will begin at 6:06 p.m.
comenzará a las 6:06
this evening.
esta tarde.
Not at midnight,
No a medianoche,
not when the sun comes up,
no cuando el sol se levanta.
but in Judaism
En judaísmo,
at 6 o'clock this evening
a las 6 esta tarde
will be the first day of the week.
será el primer día de la semana.
So when it says that they were meeting early
Como dice que estaban tempranamente
on the first day of the week,
congregamos en la primer día de la semana.
this is Saturday night.
Esto es
Oh, Saturday.
We have to change our thinking. We think that they're meeting sunrise Sunday morning,
tenemos que pensar nuestros pensamientos,
but they're actually meeting Saturday night after Chavdalah.
porque están en la actualidad congregándose el sábado en la tarde.
So, as I said, we will get into that more in depth next week. So, what is the root of all of this? What's the root of Shabbat?
¿Qué es la raíz del Shabbat?
Where is this coming from?
¿De dónde proviene esto?
La creación.
Huh?
De la creación.
La creación, creation. The celebration of Shabbat is all about creation. Pues,
La celebración del Shabbat es toda
it's looking at creation.
es mirando hacia la creación.
Has creation changed?
Ha cambiado la creación,
Have the days of creation changed?
ha cambiado los días de la creación.
Who could change them?
¿Quién puede cambiar?
God is the one who sets everything in place.
Dios es el que establece todo.
Who can change any of this?
¿Quién puede cambiar?
So it is what it is.
Es lo que es.
And it has been this way from the very beginning.
Y así ha sido hecho desde el principio.
So when we are doing the Shachrit, the morning service for Shabbat,
Cuando estamos teniendo el servicio en la mañana del Shabbat,
there is a pattern.
hay una
Método.
There is a pattern that we are following. There is a plan that we are following. And what is the plan?
un método, un plan que seguimos.
The first blessing of the Shachrit, of the morning blessings, the first blessing.
La primera mención de la mañana Shabbat.
Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu, melech haolam, asher natan lasek vina lechavkil ben yom uven laila. Ben yom, between, who has given us the ability, the understanding. Who has given us understanding.
el que nos ha dado entendimiento
to distinguish
para distinguir
between, bein,
entre
Yom, yes, Yom, day, ubein, and between Laila, night. Yes. This is the very first blessing of the Shachrit, of Shabbat. That God has given us the ability to distinguish between day and night. To what is he referring here?
así es que se refiere aquí.
So to this he refers.
Y aquí se refiere a
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. En el principio creó Dios los cielos y la tierra. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the water. Y la tierra estaba desordenada y vacía, y las tinieblas estaban sobre la faz del abismo, y el Espíritu de Dios se movía sobre la faz de las aguas. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Y dijo Dios, "Sea la luz," y fue la luz. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. Y vio Dios que la luz era buena, y separó Dios la luz de las tinieblas. To distinguish what? Between light and darkness.
para distinguir sobre la oscuridad, la luz.
God called the light day, the darkness he called night, so the evening and the morning were the first day. Llamó Dios a la luz día, y las tinieblas llamó noche, y fue la tarde y la mañana un día. This answers two things for us. This answers two questions for us.
Esto
Nos contesta dos preguntas.
Which are, one, why do we start counting the day when the sun goes down?
una, ¿por qué comenzamos a contar?
Why do we say that the day starts at sunset
¿Por qué dijimos que el día comienza a caer el sol
rather than sunrise?
en vez de la subida del sol, amanecer?
Much less in between 12 o'clock midnight.
Menos en medio de noche.
Because here it says,
Aquí dice,
there was a day,
un día,
evening
tarde,
and morning.
mañana.
And so the rabbis tell us
Dicen los rabinos,
that because God said evening first,
porque Dios dijo tarde primero,
the day starts in the evening.
el día comienza en el atardecer.
Not when the sun comes up,
No cuando amanece el sol,
but when the sun goes down.
sino cuando baja el sol.
Because he says evening and morning.
Porque dice tarde y amanecer.
How do we say it here?
Como decimos aquí,
We say from sunrise to sunset.
de la subida del sol a la caída del sol.
We count that to be a day, sunrise to sunset,
Disfrutamos el día, el amanecer y la ocultación del sol.
or sunrise to sunrise.
O de subida del sol a la subida del sol.
24 hours.
24 horas.
But not in Judaism.
No judaísmo.
In Judaism, it is from sunset to sunset.
El judaísmo es de la caída del sol a la caída del sol.
Why?
Porque
Because in Genesis 1,
Génesis 1,
every time a day is complete,
cada vez que un día fue completado,
God says from sunset, evening, and morning were one day.
dice que Dios dice que desde la tarde hasta la mañana todo el día.
And so this is the way we count the days.
Y así es el día, así es la forma que contamos los días.
God is the one
Dios es el
who sets the pattern.
que establece el plan.
We're following His plan,
No,
His method. Okay, so it has to do with creation. So on Shabbat, many of our brachot, many of our blessings have to do with creation.
en Shabbat, muchas de nuestras brajot, bendiciones, tienen que ver con el Shabbat.
So we say the earth is Adonai. The earth belongs to Adonai in all its fullness.
Decimos que la tierra pertenece a Adonai en toda su plenitud.
We say things like let me find. We say Adon Olam. We say Adon Olam,
Decimos a todos, ¿no?
the Lord of the universe. Adon Olam Hashem Malach, Lord of the universe who reigns.
El Señor del universo que reina.
B'terem kol yitzir nivra, before anything was created.
Antes que cualquier cosa fuera hecha.
Le'et nasa v'chet tzoko, when all was made by His will.
Cuando todo fue hecho por su voluntad.
Asai Melech Shemo Nekra, He was acknowledged to be the king.
Él fue
Reconocido.
ser el rey.
We say one of the psalms called it from 1 Chronicles 16. It's called Chodu, to give thanks. It says, "Sing to Adonai all the earth."
Cantemos todos,
Tell of His salvation from day to day.
cuantemos su salvación de día tras día.
It says, "Tremble before Him all the earth."
Temblen antes él toda la tierra.
The world is established; it shall never be moved.
La tierra está establecida y nunca será movida.
Let the heavens be glad; let the earth rejoice.
Deja que los cielos sean felices y la tierra regocije.
Let them say among the nations, Adonai reigns.
Deja que digan entre las naciones que Adonai reina.
Let the sea roar and all that fills it.
Deja que los océanos rujan.
Let the field praise everything in it.
Deja que los pastos
To praise, to exalt, to.
alaben.
The trees of the forest sing for joy.
Los árboles de los bosques alaban con felicidad.
We say what is called Baruch Shema, created by His word.
Dijimos, Shema, criados por su trabajo.
Baruch Shema v'chaya ha'olam baruch hu. Blessed is He who spoke and the world came into being.
Bendito el que habló y fue todo hecho.
Baruch Oseh v'reshit, Baruch Omer v'oseh. Blessed is He who maintains creation. Blessed is He who speaks and does.
Bendito el que mantiene toda la creación. Bendito el que habla y es hecho.
My point in this is that the Shabbat service is to get us, is to cause us to think of creation. El punto es, afuérzanos a pensar de creación en el sábado, el Shabbat. we need to think the whole purpose of being here is to acknowledge He's still the Creator. ¿Puedes?
El punto de estar aquí es para reconocer que Él es el Creador.
This is all rooted in Genesis 1.
Esto está todo realizado en Génesis 1.
So look at Genesis 1.
Para que vean Génesis 1.
Actually, let's go to Genesis 2.
En la actualidad, aquí la Génesis 2.
ויקולו השמיים וחרץ וכל צבאה. That all of heaven and all of the earth were finished, were completed, and all of their hosts. The host referring, we've talked to this before, the host referring to the stars. Okay, ¿puedes? Versículo 1.
Y todos los cielos y la tierra fueron hechos, y todo
Ok, sí, dice, fueron pues acabados los cielos y la tierra y todo el ejército de ellos. El punto aquí es los ejércitos. Okay, the question here is their host. What do we mean host?
¿En qué los referimos ya los ejércitos? Ejército.
Huh?
Everything, the planets, the stars, all of creation.
The angels assigned everything.
The angels.
Remember I taught you a little while back, not too far back, I taught you that when it speaks concerning the host, it's speaking of two things.
Recuerden que cuando hablamos estos días de atrás, cuando hablamos sobre ejércitos, hablamos sobre dos cosas.
It is speaking of the stars.
Hablando de las estrellas,
These are the hosts of heaven.
son los ejércitos.
But it is also speaking of Malachim, of the angels.
Pero también hablamos sobre los ángeles, los malachim.
Because every star has its angel,
Cada malachim tiene su estrella, o cada estrella tiene su malachim.
and every angel has his star. Okay? So, he is called Adonai Tzavaot,
Fue llamado Adonai Tsebaot,
the Lord of hosts.
Señor de los ejércitos.
When we hear Adonai Tzavaot, the Lord of hosts, when we hear that term,
Escuchamos Adonai Tsebaot.
usually we think of what?
¿Qué pensamos?
That he's the Lord of what?
Pensamos del Señor,
The angels, the Malachim.
los ángeles.
Yet he's also speaking of the stars,
Pero también hablaba de las estrellas.
because the stars are also called the hosts,
Que también las estrellas son llamados ejércitos.
Tzavaot. So when it says that the hosts sang or said, "Glory to God in the highest." Luke chapter 2.
Son los que los ejércitos cantaban.
It says that the hosts of heaven said, "Glory to God in the highest."
Los ejércitos decían,
And we all know that the stars sing.
Who was speaking here?
él estaba hablando de
The angels?
los ángeles o las estrellas.
In the Christmas programs, you always see the angels, right? Was it the angels?
No.
The answer is
Yes.
yes. Say yes.
Yes.
Was it the stars?
Yes.
Yes.
También.
It was both. Because the host of heaven is made up of both the angels and the stars.
En los dos, porque los ejércitos del cielo consisten en los ángeles y las estrellas.
So all of creation praises God.
Sin embargo, toda la creación alaba a Dios.
Even the stars sing the praises of God.
Aún las estrellas alaban a Dios.
So here, where it says the heavens and the earth were completed and all of their hosts, dice, fueron pues acabados los cielos y la tierra y todo el ejército de ellos. This includes the angels. The angels are part of creation.
Los ángeles son parte de la creación.
Angels are not eternal.
Los ángeles no son eternamente.
They are part of creation.
Son parte de la creación.
They are created beings.
Son
So then they're killable.
seres.
Killable?
Well, they're not eternal, so they're killable.
No.
And they're, okay, they're.
To be
sorry.
eternal means that they do have a beginning.
Shut up. Leave me alone.
They're created.
If one
You've
bites
taken me
the
off
second
into
one-
this weird tangent. I don't know how to deal with it. My brain is just like wanting to run here. Okay, verse 2. And God completed on the seventh day the work he did.
Y acabó Dios en el séptimo día la obra que hizo.
V'kal Elohim bayom hashvi'i. Mlachtu asher asa. God completed on the seventh day the work that he did. Acabó Dios en el día séptimo la obra que hizo. Ve'yishvot bayom hashvi'i makal malaktu asher asa, that he did no more work.
Y no hizo más trabajo.
He stopped all work
Paró todo trabajo
on the seventh day.
en el séptimo día.
Vaybarek Elohim et Yom Hashvi'i. God blessed the seventh day.
Dios bendijo el séptimo día.
Vaykadesh Oto ki bo Shabbat. And he hallowed it.
Y lo santificó.
What does it mean, hallowed?
Significa santificar.
The Hebrew, Vay
De hebreo.
Kadesh, Kadesh,
Separate.
to separate.
Es separar.
He made this day different
Apartar.
from all other days.
Hizo este día diferente de todos los días.
Question:
Pregunta.
Is God touched by time?
No,
Dios es tocado por el tiempo.
no.
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 God does not keep track of time.
Dios no guarda el tiempo.
You keep track of time.
Tú guardas el tiempo.
Correct?
Yes.
Monday morning,
Lunes en la mañana,
you get to work.
vas al trabajo.
The first thing you do,
Primera cosa que haces,
look at the clock.
mirar el reloj.
You say, oye, I have 8 hours
To fun.
Digo que tengo 8 horas
of this place.
de este lugar.
Maybe you don't say oye. Maybe you say ay. I don't know.
I know.
And then from there on, what?
Y de ese punto,
looking at the clock,
mirando el reloj,
checking the clock,
mirando el reloj, el tiempo,
3 hours to lunch,
3 horas para lonche,
3.5 hours to lunch. It's going backwards.
3:30 de noche.
So slow, the clock went backwards.
Tan lentamente que está llegando para atrás el reloj.
2 hours to lunch.
2 horas para lonche,
The last 30 minutes,
los últimos 30 minutos,
you're looking every 2 minutes.
estás mirando el reloj.
Only 2 minutes passed.
Más para 2 minutos,
Only 1 minute passed.
un minuto pasa.
Only 30 seconds passed. Waiting, waiting, waiting. You're looking at the clock. You're looking at the clock, looking at the clock.
Mirando el reloj.
God does not look at the clock.
Dios no se fija en
He's not a clock watcher
no está su vista fijamente en el tiempo,
because time does not affect him.
porque el tiempo no le afecta,
He's not regulated by time.
no está regulado por el tiempo.
I go home at night.
Yo voy a la casa en la noche,
I'm getting ready for bed.
estoy listando a dormir,
There's a calendar on the wall.
hay un calendario,
I take my pen.
agarro mi pluma
I mark off the day.
y tacho el día.
Today is done.
Hoy se acabó,
Tomorrow is a new day.
vaya a ser un día nuevo.
God does not mark off the calendar.
Dios no marca el calendario,
He's not regulated by time.
no está regulado por el tiempo.
So we have a month and a half to our next festival.
Tenemos un mes y medio así a nuestra
Purim.
nueva fiesta,
Purim,
Purim,
February 28th.
febrero 28.
So we start marking off the calendar.
Estamos tachando el calendario.
We have 2 months
Tenemos 2 meses
to the great festival,
para la gran fiesta.
Pesach.
Esa,
We're watching the calendar.
estamos viendo el calendario.
But God is not regulated by time.
Pero Dios no está regulado por el tiempo.
I am regulated by time.
Dios no está regulado por el tiempo.
You are regulated by
No está
time.
regulado por el tiempo.
But God is not regulated by time.
Dios no está regulado por el tiempo.
Saying what?
Diciendo que
Why would He set apart one day?
porque apartaría Dios un día.
Why would He set aside this day?
Porque apartaría Dios este día.
It has no effect on Him.
No tiene ningún efecto sobre él.
He's not regulated by days.
No está regulado por los días.
He's not regulated by hours.
No está regulado por las horas.
He's not regulated by months.
No está regulado por las,
He's not regulated by years.
los años.
He is outside of all of that.
Él está fuera de todo eso.
He's above all of that.
Está sobre todo eso.
So for what purpose does He sanctify it?
It's for the same-
Para
For the same,
The Sabbath was made for man.
it's for
Good.
the same reason he limits himself.
Good. But the Sabbath was made Shabbat. What He's telling us here, He's not making Shabbat for Himself.
no está haciendo el Shabbat para él mismo.
Does God need to rest?
¿Quiere que descansar Dios?
God gets tired.
Dios se cansa.
Ay, babe, I'm so tired. I spent all of my energy on that star thing.
You're not singing
Pero
with
no se puede ver
motivation.
las estrellas.
Don't try.
Does God get tired?
Cansa
No,
Dios.
he might get frustrated with us, but then he'll really get tired.
Does He actually even really get frustrated?
En realidad se frustra.
No.
No.
God does not have emotions like we have emotions.
Dios tiene emociones como nosotros.
But that's a different story.
It says he frustrates the people.
Una cosa diferente.
He frustrates you. Do you frustrate Him? Okay, so what I'm saying is God doesn't get tired.
Dios no se cansa.
He doesn't need to go lay down and take a nap.
No quiere acostarse a descansar.
He doesn't need to regain his energy.
No quiere que reposar para regalar energía para atrás.
So then why does He make a day of rest?
Entonces, ¿por qué hace un día de descanso?
The day of rest is for you,
El día de descanso es para ti,
for me,
para mí,
not for Him.
para él,
It is to be sanctified unto Him,
para ser santificado hacia él,
because He is the one who sanctified it.
porque él es el que lo santificó,
He's the one who set it apart.
él es el que lo pasó.
But he doesn't need a day to rest.
pero Él no necesita un día para reposar.
In fact, do you really think that he does rest?
Incluso tú crees que sí descansa,
Since he's the one who holds all things in place.
si es el que carga todo en su lugar.
He is concerned and involved in the life of every human being on this planet.
¿Cómo debe verdad?
He is involved in the life of every human being on this planet.
Él está involucrado con cada alma, cada vida en esta planeta.
The rest is not for him.
Lo que sobra no es para Él.
The rest is for me. I need to rest.
Lo que sobra es para uno.
I need the break.
Descanso.
So he's setting an example for me. He's making the example
Él está mostrando un ejemplo
by resting on Shabbat.
por reposar en el Shabbat.
Why?
¿Por qué?
Because of what comes next.
Por lo que sigue.
In Genesis chapter 2,
En Génesis 2,
we have the retelling of the story
tenemos el encuentro de la historia
of the creation of man.
de la creación del hombre.
What day is man created?
En qué día fue el hombre criado,
On the sixth day.
en el sexto día.
Go back to Genesis chapter 1.
Vamos a la Génesis 1.
In verse 26,
Versículo 26.
Veyomer Elohim Naaseh Adam. Salud.
Thank you. Yes.
Vayomer Elohim, and said, God, Naaseh, let us make Adam, man, Betsalmenu, in our image.
Hagamos al hombre a nuestra imagen.
Kidmutenu, in my likeness, in our likeness.
Conforme a nuestra semejanza.
Take those words
Toma esas palabras
and apply them to Shabbat.
y aplícalas así al Shabbat.
Say what? He's talking, he's speaking concerning Adam.
Hablamos sobre el hombre, Adán.
He says, Adam. Let us make Adam
Dice, ser Adán
in our image.
en nuestra imagen.
So all of mankind? Question. All of mankind?
Yes.
Yes. Adam, the individual, the man? Yes. Both.
Adán como toda la unidad y Adán como el individual.
So both Adam, the man,
Adán el hombre
y Adam, the human race,
y Adán la humanidad
are made in the likeness, the image of God.
están hechos a la semejanza de Dios.
Then he says to take Shabbat
Luego dice que tome el Shabbat
and to set it apart,
y lo aparte
sanctify it,
y santificarlo
to rest on this day.
para descansar en este día.
Who's he speaking to? Why is he doing this?
¿Con quién está hablando? ¿Por qué está haciendo esto?
Adam
Adán
is made in his image.
es hecho en su imagen.
Remember, we've talked, watch the connection here. We've talked about being made in the image of God. B'Tselem Elohim. To be made in the image of God is to be like his shadow.
Es ser criado en la imagen de Dios es como la imagen de su sombra.
So that when I move, my shadow moves.
Cuando yo muevo, mueve mi sombra.
When I wiggle my fingers, my shadow wiggles the fingers.
Cuando muevo los dedos, la sombra también mueve los dedos.
When I walk, my shadow walks with me.
Cuando camino también camina la sombra conmigo.
Everywhere I go, my shadow is there.
Cuando yo vaya, ahí está la sombra conmigo.
When I move, my shadow moves.
Cuando muevo, mi sombra se mueve.
When I am still, my shadow is still.
Cuando estoy tranquilo, mi sombra está tranquila.
The shadow is salam. The Hebrew word salam.
Mi sombra es salam.
So when it says Betselem Elohim, in the image of God,
Cuando dice en la imagen de Dios,
we can very literally say in the shadow of God.
podemos decir en la sombra de Dios.
That I am God's shadow.
Yo soy la sombra de Dios.
Not just in His shadow.
No solamente él,
I am His shadow.
soy su sombra.
The word salam,
La palabra salam
shadow.
significa sombra.
Saying, when God moves, I move.
Diciendo que cuando Dios se mueve, yo me muevo.
When God is still, I am still.
Cuando Dios está tranquilo, yo estoy tranquilo.
I am reflecting, I'm copying what He is doing.
Yo estoy reflejando, copiando lo que él hace.
And I am reflecting what He is not doing.
Yo estoy reflejando lo que él no está haciendo.
Say, when God does not work on Shabbat,
Diciendo cuando Dios no trabaja en el Shabbat,
I copy Him.
yo lo voy a estar ahí copiando.
I do not work on Shabbat.
No estoy trabajando en el Shabbat.
When God sets aside the Shabbat,
Cuando Dios aparta el Shabbat,
I, Adam,
yo Adán
set aside Shabbat.
también lo aparto.
So what am I saying?
Entonces, ¿qué estoy diciendo?
Adam was a keeper of Shabbat.
Adán era un guardador del Shabbat.
We don't think of this.
No pensamos en esto.
We think of Shabbat just starting here in Exodus 20.
Pensamos que el Shabbat es aquí en
This is incorrect.
esto está incorrecto.
Adam kept Shabbat.
Adán guardaba el Shabbat.
The whole purpose of Shabbat
Todo el propósito del Shabbat
was for Adam.
fue para Adán.
So what does Yeshua say?
¿Qué dice Yeshua?
That Shabbat, that man was not made for Shabbat,
Que el Shabbat, que el hombre no fue hecho para Shabbat,
but that Shabbat was made for the man.
sino que el Shabbat fue hecho para el hombre.
When did God make Shabbat?
Cuando Dios creó el Shabbat,
In the beginning,
al principio,
at creation.
en la creación,
Who was the man?
creó el hombre.
So if we put in Hebrew what Yeshua said,
Estamos en hebreo.
Shabbat lo asher ha'adam. Shabbat
Shabbat.
lo
No.
asher, to be made, ha'adam,
The man.
for
The man.
Adam,
Man.
Adam, for Adam. For Adam.
Okay.
Adam.
Adam.
That Shabbat was not, that Adam was not made for the Shabbat, but that Shabbat, when you put it into the literal Hebrew, what he said, he uses the word Adam. That Shabbat was not made for Adam, but that Adam was made, or excuse me, Adam was not made for Shabbat. Shabbat was made for Adam. The point I'm making is this: Adam kept Shabbat.
El punto que estoy diciendo es que Shabbat fue hecho para el hombre.
Why is this important? Because Christianity says
Es importante.
that this is only for the Jews.
Dice que esto nomás es para los judíos.
Is Adam father of only the Jews?
No.
Or is he father of all mankind?
Adán es el padre único de los judíos o de toda la humanidad.
For all mankind.
It also shows that Torah was in the heart.
Torah was here. God created Adam with the Torah in him.
Dios dio a Adán con la Torah en el corazón
And he had a desire to be pleasing to God.
y tenía el deseo, hacía complacer a Dios.
So Judaism, the sages teach us, the rabbis teach us,
Pero el mismo, los sabios enseñan
that Shabbat was actually a common practice with mankind.
El Shabbat fue una práctica común en la humanidad
All the way up to the flood.
hasta el diluvio.
They knew the Shabbat.
Sabían sobre el Shabbat.
They practiced Shabbat.
Trabajaban.
Noah was a righteous man.
Noah era un hombre justo.
Therefore, saying what?
Diciendo que
He kept Shabbat.
guardaba el Shabbat.
You say, well, where in the scripture does it say he kept Shabbat?
Donde la escritura dice que guardó el Shabbat.
What it says he was a righteous man.
Dice que era un hombre justo.
That means he was keeping Torah.
Muestra que estaba guardando la Torah.
He was doing what he was supposed to do.
Estaba haciendo lo que quiere que haga.
So this means that Abraham kept Shabbat.
Abraham también guardaba el Shabbat.
Shabbat was not a new thing.
Shabbat no fue una cosa nueva.
So go back to the first, to Exodus 28, the very first word in Hebrew.
Vamos a Exodus 28. 20.
Is it 28?
20, chapter 20, verse 8.
Exodus 20, versículo 8.
Zakor et Yom HaShabbat lekadsho. Zakor, remember. This is the only commandment where they are told, remember.
Es un mandamiento que dice que te acuerdes,
What are they remembering?
que están recordando
To keep Shabbat.
el guardar el Shabbat.
Why?
¿Por qué?
Because this has already been given to them.
Porque esto ya fue
And they
dado a ellos.
forgot.
Where is it given to them?
¿Cómo fue dado a ellos?
Genesis chapter 2.
Ese es versículo 20, capítulo 2.
When he says, set this day apart.
Cuando dice, aparta el día.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Saying,
Diciendo,
Shabbat is for everyone.
el Shabbat es para todos
It has not changed.
y no ha cambiado.
God has not changed his mind.
Thank you.
Dios no ha cambiado su mente.
Shabbat is Shabbat.
Shabbat es Shabbat.
And Shabbat will always be Shabbat.
Shabbat siempre será Shabbat.
Shabbat's not the first day.
Shabbat no es el primer día.
Shabbat means 7.
Shabbat significa 7.
First means
El primero,
1.
Juan,
Rishon.
el segundo,
Yom Rishon cannot be Shabbat. Yom Rishon cannot be Yom Shvi.
Yom Rishon puede ser Shabbat.
Yom Shvi. The first day cannot be the seventh day. The seventh day cannot be the first day.
El séptimo, el séptimo puede ser
Yom Rishon is Yom Rishon. The first day is the first day.
el primero es el día.
Shabbat is Shabbat. It's the seventh day. Even in Spanish, ¿cómo se dice el séptimo día en español? Ya retiene el nombre. How?
Sábado.
Sábado. ¿Qué significa? Shabbat. En inglés, no, porque why not in English? Because we're following the days of the gods of Rome. En inglés,
Es porque estamos siguiendo los dioses de Roma,
the
los nombres de los días.
Sunday del sol, Monday de luna, Tuesday es un diosito, Wednesday, Wednesday, literalmente, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, de los dioses de Roma. We're calling them by the Roman names.
And Norse.
And Norse. So, this is why, well, we can say, well, it's Sunday, and we're going to talk about this next week. This is to put us into next week because the Catholic Church said that it should move on the day in which we venerate the sun, el sol, la veneración del sol.
Sol Invictus.
Huh?
Sol Invictus.
Sol Victus. La Iglesia Católica moviendo el día por el Papa. La palabra del Papa dice que necesitamos continuar la veneración del sol, pues el día primero es el día del sol, es el sábado de la iglesia, es Shabbat. So we will talk about that more next week. Sí.
En la iglesia cristiana lo que falta es educar al pueblo a que se enseñe a escudriñar la escritura, a que mediten en la palabra, porque estamos acostumbrados cuando venimos de allá a que simplemente nos enseñen, pero sin investigar, sin estudiar, simplemente ya estamos acostumbrados a que pongan las pantallas y ya ni siquiera cargamos la Biblia o en el teléfono, simplemente leemos y eso lo creemos. Y no buscamos realmente lo que está cambiando, porque todos estos libros el hombre también lo ha tergiversado. Y ya no nos vamos a la parte del hebreo, sino simplemente al español. Y el cambio que hicieron con la gente que hizo el cambio no lo hizo del hebreo, sino del griego. Y estamos acostumbrados a eso en la iglesia, a que simplemente miramos esto y no lo pasamos a que este libro está en hebreo y en arameo con lo que hizo Yeshua, y no investigamos. Hasta que la iglesia no investigue, hasta que el pueblo no quiere investigar, no quiere estudiar, no van a cambiar esa mentalidad.
The truth is, la verdad no es difícil investigar o encontrar. It's not hard to see. It's not hard to find these things. So, give me exactly what she said so I can make sure
She's saying that the church is just accustomed to listening, right?
Yes.
They're just accustomed to listening.
They don't study.
They don't want to go back in and look at the Hebrew and the Aramaic.
Correct.
They're looking at the translation instead of going to the original text.
Correct. Okay, so how many of us, this is good because it leads me into something else I need to say here. How many of us in discussion with these kinds of things, you put all the proof out there, and the person says, to effect, I'm not going to change my mind.
We've all had that happen.
The argument then is no longer factual based. The argument is now an emotional argument.
Yo creo que también la problema está porque, pues eso es lo que me enseñó mi padre, eso es lo que me enseñó mi abuelo. Y no quieren contradecir lo que fueron enseñados desde niñez de su padre, porque en decir eso es decir que mi padre estaba mal, o mi madre estaba mal, mi abuela estaba mal. Entonces, ¿dónde queda
And that argument, the argument that my father has always done this was always done before me, this is the way we've always done it, that is an emotional argument. That is not a rational argument.
Y hay un versículo que dice que
that my father's
la gente va a venir hacia mí,
taught me this way.
Yo heredé mentiras
The same is true, and I have faced this even in my own family. The same is true with like celebrating Christmas. Christmas, it is an emotional argument. You can put all the proofs out. You can put all of the evidence out there, and people will still say, but it's such a nice holiday.
The children will be
Yes, and what will the children do? And everybody else is doing it. And I have such great memories of this holiday, and we had such sweet times. But it's still wrong. It doesn't change anything, and that's why that is an emotional argument. Okay, so I gotta close here. Emotional versus rational. Watch. Emotions are not spiritual.
The heart is deceitful about things.
The heart is deceitful. Emotions are not spiritual. We often think of them as being spiritual because we feel emotions when we're worshiping. Sometimes we cry.
Cuando estamos hablando,
Sometimes we feel exalted.
estamos exaltados,
We feel happy.
nos sentimos felices.
But understand that emotions are not spiritual.
No entienden que las emociones son espirituales.
Emotions pertain to the nefesh bekabbalah, to this body.
Las emociones pertenecen a nuestros cuerpos.
They do not belong to nefesh shamayim. They do not belong to the spiritual instinct. They belong to the physical instinct.
No pertenecen al cielo, al espiritual, sino a la carne.
This is why in Chassidut we are warned.
Las emociones.
In Hasidut we are warned. The Hasidim warn us: do not get too emotional this way or too emotional this way.
Los advertimos, los sigues, que no te pongas mucho acá, en emoción, mucho allá con esa emoción.
You're to be centered.
Estás centrado.
Can you be some happy?
Para ser feliz.
Yes. Can you be some sad?
Feliz.
Yes. But you're not to get overly emotionally happy. Too happy.
No va a ser bastante o bastante feliz.
And you're not to get overly or emotionally sad.
Y no va a estar muy deprimido, muy triste.
You're to be in the middle. Balance.
Balanceado.
So, not too much singing.
Huh?
Not too much singing.
I can't hear you.
Not too much l'chaim.
Yes. Which is why.
Así que,
Well,
Yes.
there's a time for that.
si ¿qué puede ser? ¿Ser Hasidim o hacer?
Hasidim, yes.
What are those?
Hasidim are the ultra-Orthodox.
Son los
The ones who dress like this. Okay? These are the sages whom we study. Estos son los...
son los sabios que estudiamos.
¿Más qué?
¿Eh?
¿Qué dices?
Ajá, no, ¿cómo le digo? No, yo pensé que cuando me dijo Hasidim que los años, le digo, los jajamim.
Oh.
Yo-
The word confused. That's it.
Okay. All right. So
Los jajamim.
when a person is still, is there still a question? ¿Hay una pregunta más? ¿Entiendes? Okay. So when a person is emotionally invested in an argument,
Una persona está emocionalmente inversida, involucrada en un argumento,
you cannot convince them.
no lo puedes conducir,
Not with facts,
no con pruebas
not with truth.
ni verdad,
It does not matter.
no importa.
Why?
¿Por qué?
Because they're not using this.
Porque no estamos hablando de la mente,
They're using this.
del corazón, la emoción.
It's an emotional argument. You cannot win an emotional argument.
No puedes ganar la emoción.
So when you realize the argument has become emotional,
Cuando tú reconozcas que
you're done.
el argumento es emocional, ya no lo termina.
This will save you a lot of time, a lot of headache, a lot of heartache.
Te va a evitar mucha pérdida de cabeza y pérdida de tiempo.
Just don't argue with that person.
No argumentes con esa persona.
So we celebrate Shabbat. On Shabbat, we keep Shabbat. We guard Shabbat. And with that, we say Shabbat Shalom. Stand for the blessing. You will lift up your hands. Yevareka Elai ve'yishmereka, Eran ha'penevelecha v'yifunecha, Yisarunai panevelecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May Adonai bless you and keep you. May Adonai shine his face upon you and be gracious to you. May Adonai lift up his countenance upon you and give you his peace from Sarka Shalom Yeshua Mashiach, from the Prince of Peace, Yeshua the Messiah. Amen. Shabbat